What's up, humans? So, the next conversation is going to be with author from Chile, David Velasco, who wrote the book The Message of Nazca, El Mensaje de Nazca. Right now, the book is in Spanish, but he's going to tell us, but it's going to be over the next couple of months when the book in English is coming out. It's already translated, but it's in the editing process. This is a really, I think, important piece of the puzzle of all the investigation regarding the Nazca civilization in general. So I hope you guys enjoy it. David speaks great English, so we did it in English. And yeah, if you like the content that you see here, please hit that subscribe button. You can share it anywhere you want, even other platforms. Uh, the likes really help the channel keep moving forward. So we really appreciate it if you hit that like button as well. And yeah, I got a couple of links where you can support the channel in other ways. I'm gonna leave them in the description. And yeah, this is David Velasco, Chilean author of The Message of Nazca for Psicoactivo. Thank you. What's up, humans, and welcome to a new episode of Psicoactivo. Today, I have a very special guest, author David Velasco, who is from Chile. He wrote the book, The Message of Nazca. Welcome, David, to Psicoactivo.
No, thank you, Pavel. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah. So, aside from what I already said, people would like to know a little bit more about your background. I don't know if you can give us like a small uh, explainer of what you do, and yeah.
Sure. So I started in this investigation like 4 years ago. The first time I heard from a friend about this case was in 2016. Honestly, at the very beginning, I was very skeptical. So it took me like a couple of years to really get into the matter, to really investigate and really feeling comfortable about the case. And then I started investigating about the ancient worldview, the cosmogony of the ancient Andean people. Because my point was, okay, if this is real, okay,
Yeah.
there has to be records in the chronicles, in the ethnography, in the lore, in the folklore of these ancient people in the Andes, in the ancient Peru, the ancient Bolivia, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, right? And that took me along. It was a long investigation. I traveled a lot also because it's not only reading books, you have to travel.
I want to ask you
And
something.
sure.
What kind of data did you encounter during this time where you were investigating? Was it only oral tradition? Was it written? How was it presented, the data that you
So it's
found?
great, mostly written in the chronicles. These are the records from the Spaniard, from the colony, let's say 16th, 17th century, and also the ethnography works. That's a social investigation run by Peruvian investigators, mostly during the 60s and the 70s.
Okay.
And but also you have to travel. You have to be in the places, right? Because it's not the same written pages. You have to talk to the people. You have to be there. You have to breathe the air of these areas, right? And and for me, it was very surprising the conclusions of what I was reading, what I was discovering through these pages. There's a lot of confirmation, historical confirmation in this myth, in this lore, in this folklore, in this worldview of these ancient people. That is confirming that it's a confirmation that these small beings were there, were living with and among them.
We're
Right?
talking about the Trydactils. Is that correct?
Is that correct? The Trydactyls, but not only the Trydactyls. I mean, the Trydactyls you tend to think only of the small beings, but it's not only the small beings. You have other like Maria, many others, Sebastian, and many others. I'm sure you have been covering
Yeah.
all this time,
Well,
right?
I heard about a giant's head. What do you know about that?
I've heard things. I've heard things. But the thing is very complicated because there are, the specific of the discovery cannot be much revealed.
Yeah.
There are legal aspects. I'm sure you are aware. I'm sure you have covered this in your podcast with all the people you have had here, right? So there's no much you can say regarding the specific place where these beings have been found. Because there's more than one place, right? So you have to be very careful because there are a lot of, let's say, fabricated, right, bodies.
Yeah.
And the Ministry of Culture in Peru, has used this as an argument for a while now that the bodies are fake. Even some guys like others, like Sixto Paz, at some point he said, right, the bodies were armed, right, with metal inside.
By armed, you mean constructed, right?
Constructed, right? He
Yeah.
said that at some point. I believe that he kind of recalled that statement.
Yeah.
But the thing is very complex, because you discover one thing, and the day after you have two more, and the day after three more. Putting in context what's going on, right? Where were these bodies before, right?
Yeah. And you're saying that you went to many of those places yourself, or the type of studies that you did and investigations, where are they? Are they in universities? Are they in sites around the area of the Andes? That's it, right? That area?
It's the Andes is a huge area, right? We talk about the Andes and the Andean area, but it's huge. Peru is
Yeah.
huge, right? It's a
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
country, and there were no frontiers in the past, right? Around like Titicaca, you have two countries, but it's a big area, La Sierra, right? El Altiplano.
yeah.
But there is some indications that the bodies are concentrated in certain specific areas, right?
Okay.
They used diatomite, right?
Yeah.
Diatomaceous earth to in the process to keep the bodies, right? To maintain the bodies. And the diatomite is not found everywhere. There are specific areas where you can find diatomite, right? Also something that we to consider.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you of this name that they call these beings, the Gentiles. Is it? Is that it?
Right. Right. The
So why do
Gentiles.
they, where
Right.
does that come from? Gentiles.
Right. The Gentile comes from the pagan,
Okay.
some ancient people that is not, let's say, Catholic, were before the Catholic, right?
Okay.
That's come basically from the syncretism by when the Spaniards took over the area, right? And you know that the Incas somehow they convert to this new religion, right?
Yeah.
Who comes after the Inca are the Virreyes, right? The Spaniard actually. So they kind of joined this new religion, but they kept they beliefs, the profound beliefs. They kind of mix it and merge it
They keep the traditions of
within.
their culture, right?
They keep the tradition within the Catholic frame. They change the names, they
Wow,
change
that's
situations.
fascinating.
It is. It's actually fascinating. That's. I mean, you can criticize that to the Incas, right? But thanks to that, is why we have these records. It's why we know all we know, right? So that's fascinating. So in that records is where you find a lot of information because of this syncretism. The Inca kind of isolated these previous civilizations, previous to them, previous to the Incas. They kind of consider these guys, okay, these are not Incas, these are other people, these are Gentiles, these are Gentiles, right?
Okay.
And that's where the investigation is very interesting, right? because you're working with two kind of censorships, the Spaniard and the Inca.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask you some other terms that I found interesting. What is the Hanak Pacha concept?
The Hanak
How
Pacha.
do you pronounce it?
Hanak Pacha.
Hanak Pacha. Okay.
So,
what is that?
Yeah,
And
what is
Kai
that?
Pacha and Uku Pacha too.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So
Okay.
the way the Andean they view the world, the cosmos, the universe, it was a three-party universe, right? The upper world, the mid world, and the underworld. The upper world is the Hanak Pacha. The mid world, the
Okay.
human world with the humans and animals dwell. This is the Kai Pacha. And the underworld, where also the gods lives, is the underworld, the Uku Pacha. But
Okay.
what is more interesting on this three-party universe is that it's a reflection. So the midworld and the underworld are both reflections in transitivity from the Hanak Pacha, from the God's world, from the celestial world.
Whoa.
And I call this in the book the mirrorverse. It's like a game of mirrors. So basically, if you extrapolate that, the underworld, the Hukupacha, where these subterranean cities are, where these beings come, I believe, is a reflection of the world of the gods. It's a reflection of this. It's not, let's say, where the devil is, right? But the Catholic and the Spaniards kind of changed the story and said the underworld is bad. The devil is there, the demons are there.
But there also exists some parallels, right, between different cultures and different religions. What you're telling me right now is the same representation of heaven, earth, and hell. So
but
multiple cultures have like one big story that they share, right?
But the Spaniards on the Catholic, but at the moment that came here to this area, they changed the underworld by the hell, but it's also it's a reflection. It's a pure reflection of heaven. That's a key element. Yeah, and
that's wild.
And also these three parties of the universe has an equivalent in time. So the Hanak Pacha is equivalent to the future. Our world here, the mid-world, is the present, and the Huku Pacha is the past. And that's profound implications when you study more in deep this, and you kind of receive like a prophecy or prophetic message from the ancient traditions. So kind of we're receiving a message from the future, or we are we're receiving a message that we are supposed to understand in the future of the Incas, let's say, right? So that's kind of
okay. And I wanted to ask you also about Viracocha.
Yeah.
What does that word mean, and why is there a tale about the destruction of the world that involves Viracocha?
So Viracocha is kind of the main god you hear today, right? In Cusco, it's mostly Viracocha, but in other areas of Peru and in Bolivia, there are other gods. You have Pariacaca, you have Pachacamac, you have Con, Pachamama, Pachatata. There are several entities, right? But Viracocha tends to be a central one, right? And the meaning of the word is quite confusing. No one actually understands what does that mean. It's kind of lake of fat. It's like the foam of the sea. There are different meanings. I believe one important is lake of blood. So it's kind of fundamental in the creation of the mankind. It's kind of contributing like the divine DNA to the formation of the human. I believe that is embedded in the meaning of the name. And what you say about the destruction of these gods, I mean, you can find this in every culture. This continuum cycle of construction and creation and destruction is everywhere. We have
Yeah, yeah,
3 or 4 or 5 mankind's before us, right? You have giants, you have the small beings, then you have the humans, then you have humans coming from eggs, you have humans being created by stones. You know, it's very that's a very common pattern you can find, and I believe it's echoing, right? Let's say a more Pan-American religion, old religion.
yeah. But it seems to me like some of these names are equivalents to other names from other cultures, but they could be like the same entities essentially.
I believe
In
so.
many cases. Because I was gonna ask you about Bichama and Pachamac.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a tale of two brothers?
So it's kind of a tale of two brothers. But also it's kind of um, it's a tale of how one god is more important than the other, right?
Yeah.
And also what is the role of different gods. Say Pachacamac is more like an invisible god. It's like it's not present in the daily works of the humans, but Viracocha is very present. You know, he's
Okay.
involved in the human daily works, but Pachacamac, no, he's not. No, it's a different type of entity or god or symbol, you know.
What about Bichama?
So Bichama, it's very interesting. That piece of the story of the creation of Pachacamac. There are a lot of similarities to um, the Osiris myth in Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? It's very similar. The destruction of the brother in several pieces, right? And then recombining the pieces to bring back to life the destroyed brother. And you can think, okay, what is this? Is this a syncretism? This was kind of heard by some old Andean and was then I don't know, understood and rephrased it as as their own religion. We don't have the answer for that, but there are too many coincidences at this point, right? When you compare what you're saying, you compare different religions with the Andean beliefs. That makes you think that this is not, let's say, a mistake of the chroniclers or a mistake of some guy reading, you know, what was being told by the ancient. I believe this is actually connecting points between different cultures.
What about Viracocha and this? Are there any like physical descriptions of how these entities look like? Do you know?
There are some. I
Okay.
believe that Viracocha is being described as a small being.
Okay.
Um, the very similar to the depiction that is the sun that is in the sun gate of Tiwanaku in Bolivia.
Okay.
Um, so about, let's say, 25, 30 inches tall. Right? That's
Okay, that's
small.
short. Okay, that's small.
That's
And did
small.
he have any other features like a reptilian or stuff like that, or any physical features that may have been described?
That's very interesting because you see in textiles, in depictions, in stones and everywhere in the ceramics, you see 3 fingers, right? You see 3 fingers in hands, in feet, right, all over the place, right? I'm sure you have been covering this also. Jess
Yeah.
Mantilla also posting a lot of this type of images, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to the chronicles, when you go to the myth, you don't find this. You don't find the 3 fingers, right? I don't have an answer
Okay.
for that. My hypothesis is that this is a so critical element to their religion that they didn't mention this to the Spaniards. They keep to themselves this. They keep it to themselves.
Oh, wow.
Or other explanation you can think is that this was so common for them that it wasn't need to be mentioned. They live with these things. They were used to be with people with 3 fingers. So it's
Wow.
nothing to mention. It's a daily
Okay.
basis thing for them, right?
Is this part of the Tiwanaku culture too? Do they have
Yes,
similar yeah?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh wow.
Absolutely. But there is the reptilian feature. There is the X, right? The X feature. There is humans being born from X, right?
Yeah.
And you
Based on
can think
what
it,
you
yeah.
based on what you have found or seen from the 3 types of bodies that have been presented so far, do you think the smaller type is the one you described with Viracocha, or do you think they are like the bigger ones? Are those are could those be like hybrids really, as they say?
I believe the question is, what is to be human?
Okay.
I believe that the concept of being a human is misunderstood. We narrow down the concept too much. I believe that's one of the key conclusions from the Nazca Mummies case,
Yeah.
that they are also human. Why they are not humans? We're talking about non-humans. Why are they non-humans? They have lived here maybe longer than us, right? Maybe they teach us in the past a
Maybe
lot of things.
they have a different definition for what they are.
Exactly. So maybe they are the humans and we are the non-humans. Maybe we are the
Wow.
we are the the aliens here, right? They live
You bel
differently.
you believe that we're the aliens because they've been longer here than
I
us?
kind of think about that a lot. I mean, if you think the way they live, when you read the oral tradition, they live differently, right? The ancient, the old people live differently. They live with the world. They live with the planet, more in symphony, harmoniously with the planet. So we are the only ones that are destroying the planets as we are doing now, right? They didn't destroy the planet. We are doing a lot to destroy it, right? So that makes me think, yeah.
Okay. Um, is there a white is it true that there was a time when they described there was no moon, and then the moon arrived and it was occupied by these beings? Is that accurate?
Yeah. That was one conclusion for me that was completely unexpected, honestly. And I
Yeah.
thought a lot about this, and to include it or not in the book, because one thing is talking about that the moon is artificial. At this point, everyone that follows these mothers kind of believe that the moon can be artificial. But when you say that it's not only artificial, it was brought in, right, from another place. It was put exactly where it is. But also you have to think the exact position, the mathematical harmony between distance and size of these 3 bodies, the sun, the moon, and the earth, is absolutely perfect. There is no moon in the solar system like our moon. There is no configuration that can produce this eclipse as we see from Earth. And the Andean worldview, their beliefs are saying this, that they kind of have this power to do with the moon what we see today in the eclipse, during eclipse. So yeah, I believe the conclusion is there. Um, Shocking
Wow.
as can be, it makes you think, again. So this world was created as we know it. The implications of bringing the moon, you can read the scientific papers, say a lot of, let's say, what if the moon goes away? And the result is catastrophic, absolutely, right? So the same can be when brought in the book to this to the Earth, right? The climate, the inclination of the axis of the Earth. Also, that's a topic I developed in the work in the book. Yeah.
Is there an estimated timeline for when this may have happened that the moon arrived? Do they have any idea in your investigation that you found?
So there are, I believe, indications. I don't have a specific date for that. I believe one can be that the inclination of the Earth is 23.4 degrees, right? The axis, right? But that's how bias is the axis. You don't talk about how is the axis floating compared to the solar plane, right? And you do the math, it's 66.6, right? So the Earth is in 66.6, not fallen into 23.4. So, and that particular combination of numbers is, is had a lot of
Different
charge, let's say.
connotations. Yeah.
Right. So it's a very tough combination of numbers to develop in a work like this. But in the end, it, so kind of there's a
Wow.
message related
That's
to,
interesting. I didn't know about that, man.
yeah,
Wow.
no one talks about this. And actually, this was one of the very first topics that I was drawn into, I kind of extrapolate this in this book, but you don't talk about that, and the implications are very, very important. I mean, so what was the real purpose of Cristobal Colon and company coming to the Andes, right? What were they looking for? They were looking for these ancient religions that kind of believe in this, and they didn't think of this combination of numbers as a negative thing. It's a bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um, uh, why do you think that we see fewer tridactyl representations in the art and textiles of the Inca versus the numerous examples of pre-Inca civilization, like the Nazca and the Paracas?
Why we don't see or why we see? Sorry, I didn't get it.
We see very few, like even fewer.
In the Incas. Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, as I mentioned before, the Incas kind of joined the new religion. They brought
Yeah.
in the beliefs, and they merged it with the new ruling religion. And I believe at some point the Incas that had a very healthy relationship with these beings, the Trydactil beings,
Yeah.
somehow that came to an end. I'm not sure if it's because of the Incas joining the new religion, but I believe it's before that.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I
this
believe
we're talking about a few
something
thousand
happened,
years.
something like that maybe. But at some point, this healthy religion, this healthy sorry relationship between the Incas and this
What do you mean by healthy though?
healthy, like they were like collaborating, they were
Okay.
living among themselves, they were contributing one thing to each other, like symbiotic relationship.
Is there
Uh,
any sign that there may have been like a hierarchical like I don't know, levels,
yeah.
like royalty
Um,
and then, down? Is there any evidence of that, of these beings?
it's a good question, actually. I don't believe I have found any strong indications for that.
Okay.
Um, but it seems like the small ones are, let's say, very close to humans, very close to. They were the Rual, the Apus. They were these gods in the mountains, these gods in the caves that were supporting humans. They were supporting their daily works, their alimentation, the production, of food.
Wow.
There was this symbiotic relation. So, yeah.
Okay. That's cool, man. Yeah. And I wanted to ask too about the Fuente Magna, because I told you that I was going to ask you
Ah,
about this. You went to
yeah,
Bolivia, right?
right.
I interviewed pilot Julio Darwish. You know who he is?
Oh, no, actually, no, no.
He's the Mexican pilot who testified in Congress in
Oh, right, of
Mexico.
course. Sorry, forgot the
And
name.
I
Yeah,
had him on my show because he lives in my town. And he told me
cool.
that he went to Bolivia to visit, see this Fuente Magna. You did the same, right?
Yeah, I did.
How was that
You're,
like? And what do you think about the Fuente Magna?
you're not supposed to take pictures, so I didn't take any. Um, but I actually draw I mean, there are pictures in internet. You can find things there. So for me to see these places, I sometimes, or these artifacts, sometimes you don't have an immediate answer to your question. Let me explain this. Um, you go to these places with an idea, an hypothesis. Right? You read something, you thought something, you go there. But when I go there, I honestly came back with more questions. The when you go to these places and see these artifacts, it's not like ancient aliens, ancient astronauts theory, and okay, there's something of that, but it's way more complex because these places and these artifacts are like real, are made by human hands or Trydactil hands. I don't know, but it's like made here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get me, but so okay, so this is way more complex. It's more easy
Yeah.
to think, okay, this was an ancient machine. There are some stones in Tiwanaku that you see like were crafted with modern machinery, right?
Yeah. The
And there was no
precision
other way
is
to do it. The
incredible.
precision
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I've seen
But
those.
there are other artifacts or cities, Cusco, Sacsayhuamán, Maucallacta, even Tiwanaku, and you feel like this is a real place. People live here. They really did this with their own hands. Yeah, when I go to these places, it's even harder for me to imagine, the UFO coming to Earth and did this small or no, not that small green beings, doing gray beans, doing
Yeah.
things. I believe that's what I was saying, that the concept of humans, I believe, is way more complex. I believe there is so much yet to be understood in that
Yeah. I
regard.
think that we're dealing with multiple phenomena. It's not just the tridactyls and the evidence that you're talking about here. Your book is
Yeah.
called The Message of Nazca, right? And you
Mhm.
recently just translated it to English. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, working on that, working with two native speakers, helping me with this task. It's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
it's already translated, so in edition phases. So I
Nice.
expect to have it, I don't know, 45 days from now to be live.
Oh, right around the corner. That's
Oh yeah,
nice.
I mean, I was expecting to have it live by the solstice. I mean, it was a beautiful date to have it, but I couldn't make it. So I believe, yeah, no more than 2 months from today.
That's nice.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make sure to drop the links of your Amazon page.
Thank you.
You can give it to me later because I
Yeah,
think it's gonna be really, really important for people. Yeah, show it a little bit.
there is
All
no.
right. So about the Fuente Magna, when you saw it, what
Yeah,
did you think? What was your reaction when you saw the cuneiform symbols, which don't make sense that they're there, right? If we follow the actual history.
but there are different languages.
Yeah.
There's the cuneiform. It's been actually translated, right? Someone translated this and said it's related to pray to a god, right, in Africa. But other type of inscriptions, right? There is a language written there that is not translated. That supposedly in the Andes there were no scriptures, right? There were no inscriptions. They didn't have any type of alphabet or so. Um, but there are actual indications that that is wrong. You know, Fuente Magna is one of those, right? Um, I mean, it's a beautiful artifact, but again, it's so, you know, so real. It's not
Yeah.
like you go to see an alien artifact. No, it's human in its broadness, let's say. It's entirely human. It's a beautiful piece of ceramic, but I mean, it's clay, actually, I believe. Um,
Yeah.
but it's entirely human made. So how was that performed, you know? By isolated people, isolated culture in the lake Titicaca. You know, the
I
Uru, they
happen
were
to think
completely
that
isolated.
there was a time when many cultures before the religions used to have this ancient knowledge more in tune. We have seemed to have forgotten a lot of that. This new, more modern society, due to different constructs such as the materialistic paradigm or organized religion, you know. And but I think that the evidence suggests that through architecture and handcrafting, like the Fuente Magna, that they had this knowledge before at a certain time, and it's impossible to replicate a lot of that right now.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe there is a lot of knowledge scattered around the great Andean area. I believe those are echoes from an ancient religion, sorry. Maybe the religion of the gods, right? The original religion. And it's so ancient that you will, if you go deeper, you will find these parallels with other cultures around the
Yeah,
world, right? I believe it's there. You have to
yeah,
go
which
deep
is
into
what
it.
we're talking
You
about,
have to think about it.
because
Yeah.
that makes me think of the famous Sumerians and the Anunnaki, which is a very similar tale as well, or story. What's your opinion on them specifically?
So my this is not marketing, but actually my second book it's called The Oracle of the Andes.
Yeah,
So what I'm trying to do there, it's go beyond the big Andes area. It was a tough decision for this book because there's a lot of material from the Sumerian, from Babylonia, from Egypt that was separate from this book, and so that's the second one. So I believe the Andes area was like an oracle for the ancient cultures. They came here from several parts of the world, right? And that can be an answer, for
wow.
example, for the Cueva de los Tallos cave
So
in
it was kind
Ecuador,
of like the
Ecuador,
Babylonia of Mesoamerica or something like that.
kind of like that. But
Wow.
you right, so we don't have these large pyramids like in Egypt and the Giza Plateau here, right? But we have beautiful cities all
Yeah.
around the area. So I believe these cultures came here, right? And again, Los Tallos Cave is an example of this all these artifacts like have Egyptian features, Sumerian features, Babylonian features, right? And also some like a combination of Andean and all these ancient cultures. They're not exactly matching any of those. And those
I
are
wonder how they traveled from so far away, you know?
well, yeah, well,
Isn't
um,
that a, don't you want to know that?
well, I believe I have a picture of that one of those days. So, and you have
Yeah,
the Area 51 there, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, it's very complex. But the idea has a very interesting. I don't know if you have reached the part of the book that it's kind of by the end, the final chapters. That is called the Pachacta artifact.
Yes, I
Um,
heard about this too. I've been talking to Gonzalo, who has read the whole book, and I had to pick his brain while I read it.
yeah.
And he told me about this. Can you please explain what it is?
Yeah. So the there is a story that is in a book called in a book. It's a recollection of myth that is called Dioses y Hombres de Huarochirí, Gods and Men from Huarochirí. Huarochirí is an area. It's in the in the Sierra that is called in the mountains from Lima, 5 hours from Lima. Yeah, it's a long trip. I went there actually a couple of weeks ago. I was visiting the place. Finally, it's beautiful. And this collection of myths is called also the Huarochiri manuscript from the
Yeah.
17th century. It is rich. It's absolutely fantastic. It's fabulous. But one of these particular stories is about this artifact. That is a small box. It's called the
Okay.
Pachak. So this small box is asked by Viracocha, and Viracocha sent his people from Cusco to Tiwanaku to look for
Yeah.
this small box.
Okay.
And in the small box, he asked for a sister of Viracocha, for his sister. So his sister is being brought in this small box. So what are you bringing in a small box? Is a small bean, or I don't know. But I believe the Pachacta is way more complex. It's kind of telling you about an artifact that is capable to move between different pachas. And in the Andean worldview, pacha is space and time, both together. The static, the space, and the dynamic, the time,
Are you
both
talking
together.
about portals?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Whoa,
They're kind
that's
of jumping
whoa.
from one pacha to another with this mythical artifact.
Because
You know,
there are
but it's an
some depictions of eagle people from the past that have these like little purses.
yes,
Is
yes,
that it?
yes, I believe so.
Oh my God. I'm gonna show some while we speak so people can see
Well,
them
yeah, it's
in the
somewhere
edit.
here, you know. There it is.
Dude, that's so cool. I've seen those before, and I've always wondered
Yes,
what they are.
no one has an actual explanation for what this bag means, you know. There is this bag there, and
Yeah.
also the small things with this bag here. You can see.
Yeah.
And also
It has this
Göbekli
little
Tepe,
bag
with
in
the bag
there.
in Göbekli Tepe, you see?
Yeah, that's in Turkey, right?
Turkey,
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe,
Yeah.
Göbekli Tepe. There's also an art and a small artifact that is called the Ceramico of Ambo.
Oh yeah,
And
I
you can
have seen
see
that before.
this guy, you know, having this like
Yeah.
backpack, small backpack. So I believe this is echoing that. So I believe this Pachak artifact is way more complex. Remember the case of Japan that was like 18th century, I believe so. When this lady came out from like you see like a UFO.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I've heard
Take a look at
about
those
this.
pictures. Take a look at those pictures because that lady is carrying a small box. Take a look.
Wow. What are those? I think besides portals, because this ties into a hypothesis from Dr. Michael P. Masters. Do you know who he is?
No.
He has a book called the Extra Tempestrial Model that
Okay.
talks about that these UFOs, some of these, aren't actually extraterrestrial, but they are us from the future,
Mhm.
and that these UFOs are supposed to be time machines. And it's funny that a lot of these depictions seem to be like some kind of technology. And I've seen some carvings in different places that are really, really old, and they have like little astronauts, and that's really
Yeah.
strange. Don't you think it's kind of related to this, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. We now understand those images, right? Because now are matching our current technology. Yeah. Right. Now we understand this. Like, well, before we didn't. No, it's very interesting. I believe also that there is a story about the Ayar siblings, right? These brothers, these 8 brothers that came from the underworld to this world with Viracocha. And they kind of are carrying a message from the future. I was telling you this before.
Yeah.
So I do believe there's something on that, right? Um, so maybe these beings kind of comes from a different time, right? And or came and leave us a message for a moment for us to understand, right? There's hints of that in the Andean myth.
Do you think it's possible that if this has been happening as reported by civilizations like that one, or this doctor that came up with this theory, even, do you think it may be possible for these beings to manipulate time or timelines? And that's why they could be doing this? This is just like a hypothetical
Yeah,
question, like,
yeah. Well, if you read the Pachacta story, they're kind of are doing that. I believe so.
yeah,
They're moving between different present times, jumping between different present times.
that's weird.
Yeah, it is.
Whoa.
Yeah,
You kind of spooked me a little bit. I'm gonna ask you a question from Gonzalo, who
sure.
said, I would like to know if he thinks Machu Picchu and all these megalithic mysteries and even the pyramids in Mexico were created by the second creation. What is the
Hmm.
second creation, first of all?
So there is a first creation of Viracocha that were supposedly giants,
Okay.
right? And then the second creation of Viracocha is it's beings or humans in his likeness. But if Viracocha is a short, say, stature being, so the second creation could be what we call now the Nazca Mummies. Right. So there are different creations, different type of humans, right? Along the story of creation, destruction, cycle of these gods. So these beings seems to be like in an previous essay of humans, let's say. Essay is a strong word. That's not fair. But different creations, right? Like the ant people of the Hopi,
Yeah.
right? The ant people were before the humans like us creation, and they were supporting all along the different humans reset, right? Along the way to this day.
Okay. And okay, but how in the second creation were these sites constructed then, do you think? During the second creation?
No, I believe are way before some of them,
Okay.
way before the arrival of the moon, if you want to believe that. There is a connection, there's certainly a connection between these different sacred places are all around the world. You have seen, I'm sure, a lot of times this line that connects Rapa Nui with the astronaut in the Nazca lines, and then you can get to the Giza Plateau where the pyramids are in Egypt, right? In a straight line. But I believe this construction and were more complex than this. You have to understand what is, say, the inclination of this new equator line that all around the world, how it is connected to the previous state of the planet Earth way before all this creation started, right? Going back again to the inclination of the axis of the Earth.
It seems to me like these deities or entities, uh they seem to be the same ones from different cultures. And it seems like they traveled around the world teaching what they know to civilizations, maybe even tampering with their DNAs, and making them, helping them create these megalithic structures. But it's them, right? Like that's what they did to advance society or human civilization, right?
There are a lot of similarities in different stories in the Andes and Egypt and Sumeria. about the first god that came out of the waters as a first rainbow, to bring back life and calling humans to repopulate the earth, right? There's a lot of in the Bible. Viracocha is kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of similarities, and I develop more this in the second book. What they call the prime eight, right? These first siblings, these four siblings, but they were eight because every man came with a respective wife, let's say. So there were four men, four women, like they were this prime eight. And you can find this the same in Egypt. You can find this the same in Sumeria. So there's a concept of these first eight entities or forces that are essential to the creation of the life as we know it today.
4 couples, you say,
Four
right?
couples. That's the word. Thank you. Four couples. Yes. And
Wow.
in Egypt, you find it in the Ogdoada, beings like with reptilian features as well. So, um,
Do you think it's possible that we, uh, based on all these writings and different cultures, the similarities, do you think it's possible that we are like descendants of them? Uh, do you think we have their kind of DNA because we come from them?
I do so. I do believe so. Um, One example for me is in Machu Picchu, the Three Windows Temple, Templo de las Tres Ventanas. Um, that is thought that is believed today is Tambotoko, that is the mythical mountain where these first four couples emerge from the underworld, right? But you see the temple, archaeologists are not gonna like what I'm gonna say now, but you see the temple and you see like three windows, right? But on the extreme, there are two that are actually closed. So there's five, but two are closed. You only see three. So this is one example for me that inside us, you have this Trydactil feature, right? So that
Yeah.
DNA is inside us. And I believe in a very simplistic way, those type of construction are telling you that.
Wow. Oh man, I wanted to ask you about how the case is going right now. Have you seen any recently? Because I know you've been traveling all over the area.
Yeah,
Are you up to
maybe
speed?
I missed a couple. Um, but I talk frequently with some of the guys that are,
You speak with Joyce constantly, right?
yeah,
I can
yeah,
imagine.
it's a close friend. I know there's a lot of things going on with this situation with the government between Mausan and the Ministry of Culture, right? This
Yeah.
legal thing, right? Um, but honestly, for me, I mean, I know there's a lot of people following. I mean, every body that is discovered, right? But for me, there are no surprises there. I mean, it's going to be one, two, three, four, five, even more complex one than the other, even more alien than the other. You know, there's for me, there's no surprise there. But again, I follow the news, but I believe the the real thing here is to have not only, let's say, the Gary Nolan of the world admitting or taking the attention to this, bringing the attention to this. I believe that we need like a strong confirmation from first from Peru,
The
from the
Peruvian
Ministry of
government, right?
Culture. That's the first thing that had to happen.
Yeah.
The country has to accept it. Have to say, okay, this is legit. These are real biological bodies. We don't have an answer, but these are biological. That statement of the Universidad de San Luis Gonzaga University from Ica, Peru,
Yeah.
that's in their statement from October, November last year, right? So I think for me that's the big first step. After that, okay, so these beings are accepted by the government. Then they can go to a museum. Then people can go and visit. Then scientific community can access the bodies and run studies to these bodies, or in a safe environment, not hidden, moving the bodies from here and there with no one watching because, so like bringing like a legal framework that allows the scientific community and investigators like you and me and all others that are listening to this to go and see the bodies. Maybe you cannot touch it because it has to be protected, right? But to see it, right? And that's going to bring a lot of good things to Peru, I believe, right? And also to other bodies that I'm sure you have been saying, you have covering that in different parts, or not only Chile with the
Yeah.
Atacama being, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be a validation for all other discoveries around the world.
There has been like an uptick uh recently from American scientists and uh academics who have started to study the case. And there was a recent setback with one of those people who's a professor in philosophy, uh, who initially he was on my show saying that all of the bodies are real and they were beings at one time in history. And then like a couple of days later, he did a complete 180 and some of the things because he was essentially he studied uh, samples of these beings, but he revived the Lama school hypothesis. And I think that I don't know. I still don't know what to think about what happened there because he may have I don't know, gotten false information at a certain point, or he was distracted with other types of bodies, these constructed bodies that we've talked about, and it certainly got a reaction from a lot of people. Many of the people who are trying to do this in Latin America were not happy with the way that went. But yeah, just to give you a small update on that. But I want to ask you about the American effort to do this disclosure thing. I don't know how more up to date you are with that. What do you think about it? What do you think about the UFO phenomenon in general? I would like to know.
There are two questions there. um, so I believe the American public um, is still very, very far behind in general, right? The case, right? The actual case, let's say, the real facts here, right?
Yeah.
There are efforts like your podcast, right, to bring more accurate information to that part of the world. I want to publish the book in English as well. That's part of also my goal here. But again, I believe it has to come first from the Peruvian government. I think for me, that's the first thing that has to happen. I don't see any formal American scientific or, let's say, anthropological community or association bringing light to the case if the government in Peru is saying that this is fake.
Do you think it's just like a group of, because it's the Ministry of Culture and we're talking about archaeologists, we're talking about historians, we're talking about, all the established status quo of mainstream, all of that, do you think it's just to protect what they have there, or do you think there could be like a more insidious reason they're doing this? For example, like they're being manipulated in some way. I don't know. What do you
You know,
think might be
yeah,
happening?
I think there are two narratives in these countries. On one hand, you talk to the people, you talk to the archaeologists, you talk to the scientists, and they're really interested, really, really interested. Like the University of Ica. These are really professional, really serious people committed even investing their own money to move forward with the case, right? But then you have this other statement of, let's say, the administration, right? And you can feel it when you go to let's say an archaeological site. You realize that no one is doing anything to go deeper into what we know. They are administrating what we already know. They're worried about bringing tourism to the country, and run a little maintenance here and there. They cannot touch actually the construction because that's you cannot do it. But kind of, just administrating. They kind of lose the interest in reformulate these old questions to find new answers. They are not in that pursuit. Let's say, at a not government but department level, because there's young people, there are older guys that are actually interested in to know more, right? But there is no actual execution to that curiosity of some people there.
Okay, man. Do you think it's possible we see them change their opinion anytime soon? Because they seem pretty silent right now due to the lawsuit that is going on. But do you think that may have worked in making them change their opinion?
It's very difficult. The political situation in South America is always really complex. You have to be here to understand it. The political situation in Peru, it's very complex. So who's gonna say it? Who's gonna sign that paper? It's gonna be this president and the next president. Who's gonna commit to this? That's very difficult. I believe the University of Ica and other universities that have participated in this study have to keep doing their efforts and come forward to kind of, put in a really difficult situation the government. But again, these are state-owned universities. The government at some point can change the administration, and the bodies go poof, and we don't see it anymore. I believe that's really the risk here, I believe.
Mexico is kind of worse because here in Mexico, there's like just one politician paying attention to the UFO topic or the phenomenon, and the rest are just take it as a joke. Is what happens. So at least in Peru, they're trying from universities and fighting against the government. But here in Mexico, it's other than Jaime Maussan, there are no real efforts to do that from any power, really, in Mexico.
And going back to your previous second question that I didn't answer. So this, you have, let's say, in this field, you have the UFO believers, the UFO investigators, right, have a very, let's say, specific way of thinking and doing things and communicating things, right? Then you have the contactees, right, like Sixto Paz, Ricardo González Corpancho, like Antonio Portugal, right, an amazing guy as well. And then you have this Nazca Mummies case. But I realized that no one actually from these two threads, these two paths of thinking, are actually, accepting the Nazca Mummies case like for granted. It's not for granted. The UFO guys are, like ancient aliens, and guys, here's the answer. But no, UFOs are there and not here and not there, not in Peru. And the contactees, they have their own answer. They have their own word, and it's kind of a closed system, So I believe this Nazca Mummies case is a different, it's a third way of thinking, I believe.
Okay. Do you think there will come a time when they accept that case for granted, or because I know it's been because of all the misinformation and
Mm.
disinformation that's come from either the Ministry of Culture or somewhere else that we don't know about. But yeah, well, I don't know. What do you think?
I believe at some point in the UFO community has kind of rejected the Nazca mummies, right?
Yeah,
Um, I say this with all respect to the investigators in that field, but um, we have bodies here, you know, biological bodies that match the description of the UFO investigators. So, guys, here it is. Why are you rejecting this? You know, so I kind of believe we are kind of the echo chambers. I believe that's what's happening. You know, the UFO
yeah,
people is like an echo chamber. The contact is an echo chamber, and then you have this new guy, the new kid in town, and no one wants to like give too much attention because if you bring in this case in both, it's a different situation, and you're changing everything. So again, I know if the third way or it has to be a combination. I believe that's the challenge here to bring all these people together, and contribute the expertise, their knowledge as well. We don't not only need the scientific people. We also need the contactees. They have to say
yeah,
something. I want to hear
yeah,
what Antonio Portugal has to say. I want to hear what Ricardo González Corpancho has to say. I want to hear Sixto Paz what to say about this. Because the bodies are here. So what are they saying? They are talking to the entities there. Okay, tell me, what are they saying? You know?
yeah. There are so
And I,
many
and I
though.
say with all respect to the guys, right? And I'm a very close friend of some of those. So my criticism is to, let's say, burst the bubble. We are all in, right? We have to
Yeah,
bring all people together. This is too big for just one university in Ica. It's too big for one investigator in Mexico. It's bigger than you, than me, than everyone here. So we have to bring all people together, right?
yeah. I think it's what many of the people that I associate myself with on this topic are trying to bring to light for the English speaking people,
Hmm.
because there are, to my knowledge and where I stand with the bodies, is that the larger bodies are very, very weird. And I think they need, based on the evidence that there's already about them, they need to be investigated. That's the bottom line. By the most important universities in the world, they need to be investigated.
Right.
But I do struggle a little bit more when we start talking about going further than they're really interesting, and they seem to be going towards proving that they were a civilization more advanced than us, that mingled with us about 2,000 years ago or so. But I don't think I can be there until these bodies are investigated. And if they're accepted or not, well, the investigation will say, but it needs to be a fair investigation. It can't be more misinformation. It can't
Right.
be staying behind closed doors talking about it. It needs to be in the open. It needs to be
Right.
transparent. I think
That's
and
key.
that's what I want, to be honest with you. But um, that's why I want to talk to you specifically, because you have a piece of the puzzle that has to do with these oral traditions and writings and from ancient civilizations that lived in that era. And I think this adds a little bit more to the lore. For me, it doesn't either prove or disprove anything. It's just history that people
Hmm.
from that era left for us to study, and that's what you're doing. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. No, sure. It's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Exactly. But way it's a way complex,
And
puzzle,
and
right?
big ass
Man,
puzzle.
oof, yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. So, can you tell the people where they can find you and where they can get your book? What besides the book, what else would you like to tell the people?
Sure. No, my book is in Amazon.com. You can find it under the name of El Mensaje de Nazca. I have an Instagram account that is called libro_el mensaje de Nazca. I'm trying to keep nurturing my YouTube channel, but honestly, I mean, I'm a one-man show, so it's
Yeah.
really tough, you understand.
Yeah.
But no, I believe a final message to people is the invitation is to be curious, to to question yourself, because there are some people in this TikTok era, let's call it that way. I sound like an old guy, right, saying this, the TikTok era, but everything has to be so quick. You have 5 seconds and the TikTok, and then okay, now I believe. But honestly, guys, this is way more complex than this.
Yeah.
You have to go deeper if you want to understand. A lot of friends are telling me, hey, but I saw this on TikTok. They're saying that it's fake, the llama skulls thing. But how can I compete with a TikTok that's viral? That is tough. So I believe the challenge,
I think that the
again,
podcast revolution is the place where we can all help each other to put it
yeah,
out there.
um,
But especially from firsthand people like yourself. You're over there investigating
sure.
artifacts and writings and all that stuff. And that's the people that I think we need to talk to, the firsthand, either researchers, authors, investigators, scientists. So I want to thank you for being a guest on Psicoactivo. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I would like to have another conversation in the future,
For sure.
if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Uh, so thank you very much, David. And I will see you guys on the next one.
Thank you. It was a great talk.
Thank you.